Hello and welcome. So my plan was to start the graphical user interface side of things a few videos later when I've actually implemented some of the other stuff in the guide, which I'll show you just right now. So I wanted to implement some of the stuff before I actually got into the graphical user interface side of things, so the stuff that we have skipped. So things like, if I could come down here, um, in waveform we've got a couple of things, a couple of main things that we haven't implemented yet, like such as the data, which is slightly, well, it's kind of bigger than these other commands, and it'll take a bit more work to implement the data command. So I wanted to do that first, but I think it'll make sense to get some sort of visual output through GUI first before we actually get into implementing some of these commands. So what I'm going to do is implement graphical user interface in the next video, in the next series of videos, and but in this video I'm just going to fix a couple of errors here and there that I've spotted so far, and I'll keep fixing them as I go along, but right now I'm just going to fix a few things, and then we'll get on with the GUI stuff. Okay. So I'm going to come down here, and so the first thing I noticed was we're checking for the math channel being selected, and if it is selected, then we're saying it needs to be turned off. Well, max can't be selected when the math channel is selected, or raw mode can't be selected if the math channel is selected. But what if we selected the raw mode and then we're trying to switch to math channel? There is no if statement here saying you can't switch to raw mode when the math channel is selected. So that's something we need to implement before we move forward. So in the math section here, what I'm going to do is, so this is the def transition function, well, channel transition function. So I'm going to say if mode dot get state is equal to raw, or mode dot get state is equal to max, then what we want to say is new state is equal to error state, and yeah, that's what we do. Just like over here, well, instead of setting it to error state, I'm just going to say it's set it to the current state, which is what the setting it to error state is going to do as well. But it's just going to take a step further and put it into the state machine class, and that's going to do it for us. But we can just do it right here. So instead of putting it into an error state, I'm just going to say new state is chan dot get state. So we keep in the current state, and I'm going to print math channel can't be selected when the raw or max mode is selected. Yeah, and I'll just create some padding for it as well, like we did before. Okay, and I'm just going to copy this, which you'll see, and paste it down here as well. And that should be it for this one. And the next thing I'm going to do is come in the CMD parser file, and something similar happened here as well. So if I come into cmd.upper_run, so in the handler, if we come back to handler and we come down here in raw mode, we're actually checking for the state of the sampling. So we're checking if it's running. So if it is running, then we can't set it to raw, and we'll print this out. But what if it's already if we manage to set the mode to raw, and then we're trying to run it, and it's going to run it immediately because we haven't put any sort of checking method to see if this mode is in raw. So I'm going to do that here as well. Sorry, we won't actually do it in CMD parser, obviously, because we're not setting the state in this file. We're actually setting the state back in the handler file. So I'm just going to scroll up, and for the run transition, I'm going to say when it's stopped. So when it's stopped, and we're trying to set it back to a running state, we want to make sure that the raw mode is not selected. So come down here and say if mode dot get state is equal to raw, and if that's the case, then we're not going to set to running, but instead we're just going to set to actually no. So we're if the state is stop, then and if you're trying to put it back to run, so this is going to actually be in the run. Sorry, I just woke up, so sampling dot get state, and we're going to print out. Well, let's just add some padding. That's not good padding. Print raw mode needs to be turned off to start the sampling again. Okay, so that fixes that, and because we don't have a protocol version, so but for both the protocols it's going to stay the same, so we don't need to change it for the smaller long version. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for this video. In the next video I'm going to start working on the graphical user interface for the client. We don't really need a graphical user interface for the server because, again, it's a remote machine that we don't have access to. So naturally, we're not going to have any sort of visual output from the server. It's just going to be text-based and behind-the-scenes sort of thing. In the future, I do plan to get the wave data that we're going to create for the server. So in the future, we're going to import it into our client in real time. And display the wave data as a visual output. But that's all for the future, and until then, I'll see you next time.